All right, Taylor, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, just wanted to say good evening to everyone. It's really great to see how many members we've got registered and taken time out of your Thursday night to do our regional referee development sessions. It's really great to see so many people wanting to learn a new skill or upskill themselves within water polo. So it's really good. I'm Taylor. I'm the Regional Development Officer for Water Polo New South Wales. I've been in the role for about a year now. So any questions, anything like that, just shoot them my way. I'll pass over to Steph.
Wonderful. Thanks, Taylor. So like Taylor said, welcome everybody. Before we get started, I will do an official acknowledgement of country. So in the spirit of reconciliation, Water Polo New South Wales acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people today. So with that, I will start our presentation, and I'm just going to maneuver on my screen ever so quickly so I can actually see everything and all of you at the same time. And yeah, amazing. All righty, can everybody see a PowerPoint presentation?
No.
Not yet, Steph.
Not yet. Okay, good, because I haven't actually shared it. Wonderful. I'm trying. All righty. How about now?
Yep, all good.
Wonderful. Okay,
Yep.
Great. All righty. So welcome, as Taylor said, welcome to our regional referee development session. It's so great to have so many of you that have signed on tonight. I think we've got over 37 people at the moment are in, which is amazing. To give you some numbers, 73 people have registered for these sessions, which we're going to be running over the next 6 weeks, and we've got a real big mix of people from all across regional New South Wales. We've got a few other people that are not from regional New South Wales. So I did see Sharon logged on earlier. So welcome, Sharon. And we do have a few other people that have registered, but I don't think they're on. They might register to get the sessions later when we send them around. So real good mix of people from Ovens and Murray, from Wagga, Newcastle, Tamworth, Central Coast, Dubbo, Narrabri, which is one of our newest regional clubs, and Far North Coast as well. So welcome again, everybody. So our first session for this 6-part series is an introduction to referee development. We'll be talking about how to be involved in water polo across the state, how to prepare, and the resources that are available to you. So I might hand over to Andrew, who is our Director of Referees, to start us off.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. I noticed that there's some many people I know and a lot more I don't know. So I apologise if I don't know who you are at this point. Shall we commence, please, Steph?
Yes.
So what are we trying to achieve? To provide regional referees with their first step to understanding what it means to be a referee. To have all referees in New South Wales refereeing the same way so that there is cohesiveness across the state at all levels of competition. So with that, before we move on, you'll notice that with our state champs and everything, we have referees from regional areas coming to Sydney. We quite often get comments, oh, you referee differently in the city than we do in the country. And what I'd ideally like in the ideal world is that we can get any referee from any part of New South Wales and put them a game in Sydney and vice versa, and no one knows the difference. Okay, that's ideal, the nirvana for refereeing, as I see it. Okay, the 6 sessions. We're going to cover tonight's session, obviously, introduction, how to prepare and the resources available, general play, your area and contra fouls, centre forward, centre back setup and how to watch and manage, and also the new goal area, exclusion fouls, penalty fouls, and then managing the bench, the rare 1%ers and the summary. And what do you hope we hope you get out of these sessions? Confidence and basic understanding to pick up a whistle or to continue refereeing and get better as we go. Right to go. So the three of us, there's Taylor. Does Taylor want to talk about herself or does she want me to do it for her? I'll do it for her. She is the Regional Development Officer for Water Polo New South Wales. She's been a coach. She wants to come back and play, but, you know, bung shoulder, can't shoot properly or something. I don't know. You know how it is. And she is a member of Central Newcastle Water Polo Club. I'll let Steph talk about herself because I'll annoy her. Oh, and also with Taylor, but some of you may know, but her brother Nathan is at the World Champs at the moment playing for the Sharks. So we'll give him a hard time if we have to.
Thank you. Yeah, so like Andrew said, he'll let me introduce myself. So I've been around water polo for quite a while, but I've been in the role of as referee coordinator since last year. I started playing in 2000, started refereeing in 2012. I had to go dig through some emails to find out exactly when. I'm a member of the Sydney Stingers Water Polo Club here in Sydney. This AWL season, I was appointed to the AWL referee panel and did my first games as an AWL referee. Part of wanting to be a referee coordinator, I wanted to be able to give back to referees and get people up to, you know, doing well and everything like that. And I'm striving to give the referees support and guidance that I would want and that I do get as a referee myself. And I'm going to let Andrew introduce himself.
So for those that don't know me, I've been the referees director for New South Wales since 2021. I do live in Canberra, by the way. I became an international referee in 2002, National League in 1997. This year I hit 800 games for National League, and I got my national accreditation that was back then in 1994. And I've done a few tournaments over the way. And I also want to point out that Libby, who's joined us, was also appointed to the National League panel this year. Congratulations, Libby. I hope the games went well.
Thank you.
I heard they did. Next,
Awesome.
please, Steph.
Alrighty.
The role of the referee. So as some of you know, officials are the backbone to any sport, from beginner programs to high performance. Officials are vital to the sport at all levels in water polo. Officials include defined rules. And most of you want to know this when we're talking about officials in general. The officials of the game are the referees, who the buck stops with us essentially, but we're there to make sure the matches are played fairly in accordance with the rules of the game. And it's something I'll harp on a bit later as well. The delegates, so this is where there's some conflict in what we do in Australia compared to internationally. Delegates internationally ensure the games are conducted, the scorecard is completed correctly, and managing spectator and team staff behaviour in accordance with policies and procedures. Now, they do that here as well, but internationally, we also have evaluators, and they assess and provide feedback to the referees on their performance. Generally the only, and if you're watching the World Championships at the moment, you'll see two people, a delegate and an evaluator. We introduced that for the National League finals this year. They had a delegate and evaluator, which was an interesting one. If there's two people, the evaluators give the feedback to the referees. The delegates may talk occasionally, but not very often. Next, please. It's a shame Liz isn't here because I like bagging delegates. Table officials, match secretaries, and timekeepers. So in ways to be involved, and I know this is very generic and probably harps on a lot of the Sydney metro areas, but these are some things you can look at. Different competitions, your local competitions, regional competitions, Sydney Metro, Combined Schools, and Sydney Super League. The Sydney Super League referees, we try and identify referees that we invite to participate in that every year. Steph was one of those. We've had Gail do some as well over the past few years, and it's something we try and do when we can. Events, 12 under 12s, junior state festivals and championships, junior and open country club championships, Colsmead championships, and the University Cup. And further opportunities, training games, development camps, regional academies, training weekends, regional finals, metro finals, country and national championships. We have recently sent referees to Melbourne for the East Coast Challenge, and where was it? Hobart for the under 13s. We ideally try and send a balanced mixture of regional referees and metro referees when we send referees to those tournaments. In the first instance, you'll notice here there's 5 different levels in theory in New South Wales. 2 years ago, we introduced the purple shirt. Water Polo Australia still only has the Community Development Advanced and the Elite. We haven't included the Elite here, but we've introduced the purple for those that aren't quite probably at the beginning of their advanced referee accreditation. As you can see there, I am aware that Water Polo Australia are reviewing the trainings, but I don't know what they're going to come up with. They've been working on it for 18 months. So how to prepare for your games. There's different ways of thinking about this. This is what I would like to see and what I try and teach the people before the competition starts. Read the rules, the competition and World Aquatic Water Polo rules. Some people think this is hilarious. National championships, the first question I ask referees is, when was the last time they read the rules? And I am horrified at some of the answers. For me, if the teams are training 3 or 4 or 5 times a week and you don't have the respect for them to read the rules the week before you go to a tournament, I think you're doing the players a disservice. I harp on it every tournament, state championships, national championships, and even National League with referees. I think it's disrespectful that we can't at least read the rules before we attend a championship. If you're flying somewhere, read them on the plane. Okay, simple things like that. You also never know when you're going to turn up at a tournament and they might give you an exam. Ensure that you read all of the rules and understand them. If there are any that you do not understand, please reach out to your local referee coordinator or contact Steph via the email. Make sure that you have your white pants clean and ironed, your whistle, red and yellow cards, white shoes and competition shirt ready. Ideally a few weeks before the start of the competition. Don't turn up with dirty pants, as one of our referees did at a tournament this year. Also, and that's a general statement, if you're not wearing white pants in your local comps, that's a competition decision, but we're supposed to wear long white pants. Also with this, don't fall in the trap of reading the beach water polo rules under the new water polo rules on the World Aquatics website. I've got numerous questions in the last few weeks about rules that don't make sense, and that's not what we're told, but that's for the beach water polo rules. So make sure you're not reading them as well, unless you're about to do beach water polo. Having a dig at Steph there. And a few others. Before each game, please speak to your colleague that has been appointed to the game with you. And you need to discuss certain things before the game. You may not have met your colleague before, you may not have refereed with him, you might have seen him around the pool, but you've got to look at where you'll be looking during attack and defense, and in particular during the transition from attack to defense. How will you deal with the coaches? Together you set the limit on what you will and won't accept. New South Wales Water Polo will provide some guidance parameters to assist you. And make sure you're familiar with the clocks, in particular what the 30-second and quarter time sirens sound like. Even though we're not running the clocks, we all know that when the clocks fail, the referee gets yelled at first. Like we're the magician, that we're supposed to know how to fix them. So please understand how to use your clock system. That's okay. Expectations. So tonight's session won't be as in-depth or as complicated as some of the others. As referees, there are certain expectations when at games, whether they're at under 14 level or the Olympic level. Some of those expectations are always act in a professional manner before, during, and after the game. Always wear your white pants, blue New South Wales shirt or the shirt provided, have a whistle and red and yellow cards. I'll add with the red and yellow cards, if you can't deal with a coach because you don't have a card, then there's an issue. How are you going to deal with a coach if you don't have a red and yellow cards? We're not supposed to yell at a coach. We have cards to deal with it. So you've got to have them in your pocket when you're refereeing. Hoping your colleague has cards on the other side of the pool, which has happened before in this country, to deal with the situation is not a good look. Always check and sign the scorecard. And if you're watching a game, never openly talk about other referees and their decisions during a game. It will get back to the referees. Having parents and spectators hearing you in the stand, if there's a group of referees sitting together saying, oh, Libby made a terrible call, that's not a penalty. The parents hear it, spectators hear it, and it gets back to the players, and it can get back to the referees. And we've got to try and eliminate. If you're sitting there in a group of referees, okay, you can discuss things, but don't make sure you're away from the spectators. So at tournaments overseas, we sit totally away from the spectators so that they can't hear us talking about decisions in the game.
Can
And yes, we do it occasionally.
Can I also just add to that? When we are in close quarters in some venues, obviously some spectators sit very, very close. For those that are familiar with Lambton Pool, the spectators are on top of the referees. At certain games, particularly when they're tents and in small communities, and even in Sydney Metrocomp and stuff like that as well, making those decisions and having those conversations where spectators can hear them can also create unnecessary angst in the crowds, which the referee then also has to deal with. They have to deal with the players, the coaches, and then they also have to then deal with spectators who clearly don't know the rules and are just going off the back of what people are discussing, and they might not have the whole context of what they're actually talking about as well. So just to add to that.
Thank you. Managing yourself and staying composed. Some tips to work on that. It can take time and experience to get it right. Let's just be honest. We're all going to make mistakes. I still make mistakes, although I reckon half of you would never notice. And that's the goal I have, that no one really notices except me and hopefully the other referee. But we're all going to make them. We can't dwell on it and we can't think about it. Okay, you need to manage yourself appropriately, which is half of that goes back to preparation. Have you broken the, oh, there we go. If you make a mistake, okay, try and put it out of your mind. And the other thing with mistakes is, and this contradicts a lot of the discussion about coaches. If you make a mistake and the coach yells at you, is it fair to punish the coach when you've made the mistake? Okay. If they swear at you, call you by name and swear at you and go throw something, then deal with them. But if you make a mistake, sometimes you just got to think there and go, you know what? I made a mistake. Admit you made a mistake. The coach and the players will calm down. Okay. And don't forget, under the rules, we can change our decisions if we make a big mistake. Concentrate on the game, not the comments. That is what being a good referee is all about. However, if a player or coach uses your name and foul language, then there's an immediate red card, no warning in this case. Now, I have heard rumours that apparently referees think you can red card with the other ref and the delegate. That would be a career killer as a referee if you ever did it. I've never heard of that before. The rules don't actually specify another referee or a delegate. Coaches and players using your name, and we get into it in later slides. How I interact with coaches is probably different than what you will, because I'm a lot more experienced. I've traveled with a lot of these coaches and I've been around a long time. So I can probably, which is not a good thing sometimes, deal with them in a different manner. So I could probably say something to them because I have that relationship with them. If it's the first time you've seen them, and Libby and Steph probably found it with National League this year with coaches they'd never met before, it's a bit harder if you haven't got that relationship with the coaches on how you deal with them. So you've almost got to go back to what the rules say and just deal with it that way. Okay, and I'm sure that's going to confuse a lot of you. But yeah, so that's one of those ones, do as I say, not as I do, because I've been doing this for so long and I can. So some of the National League coaches, I'm more likely to have a little chat to them. That's enough, just calm down, rather than straight to a card or a warning. And sometimes you get a better benefit out of that than just going straight for a card. Also, if the head coach uses foul language, then it is an immediate yellow card, plus a warning to them. Then the next time it will be a red card. If it happens again, use a red card. Now, we have a lot of foreigners coaching in this country who talk in a foreign language when they get frustrated. You can just tell them to calm down. Don't always presume they're swearing at you in their native tongue. They may not be. Some of them actually are having a go at their players as well. So just give them that warning and say no more of that. Little things like that. Okay. How to prepare for a game or a tournament. Brush up on, as we covered, brush up on the latest rules and regulations of the league associated with said game or tournament. You've got to read the competition rules in every competition. I was in Brisbane in March to help them out, and I couldn't find their competition rules anywhere to read. So I had no idea what their competition rules, and no one up there could tell me where they were. We have resources we can use. We've got the competition rules that we have for New South Wales, and we also have a handbook that was produced, I think, last year or the year before. It's just put up where you can find it on the page for you. And it's just to help you go through some of the stuff we've covered tonight, as well as other things. Okay, and again, if you don't understand a rule, and when you're reading the rules and brushing up on the rules, the ordinary fouls, exclusion fouls, and penalty fouls are pretty clear cut generally. Okay, if you call an exclusion, most people are going to be happy with it. Some won't be happy with it. That's the fact of the world. Okay, it's the other things that get us into trouble, like the 1%ers we'll talk about later, but little things. Is the pool set up? Do you know how the pool needs to be set up properly? Check the pool setup when you get there. Things like that. Okay. Be familiar with the code of conduct for referees and officials, particularly if you're traveling and doing your competitions. I think it's there somewhere. Yep. Okay. It's nothing special. It should be something you just do anyway. More resources available. The World Aquatic Rules. WWR, the World Water Polo Referees Association, has some great stuff online. They regularly release quizzes and which rules questions and some video scenarios. And you can do generally 8 to 10 questions. You fill it all in, you can then get your answers back. Just be careful with some of them. The last ones they released, there was also a question in there for LEN, which is the European competitions, like Champions League, and they have slightly different rules for some. And there was one about caps for players that threw a lot of us out because the LEN rule is different than the FINA rule, than the Water Aquatics rule. So just be careful of that when you're doing it. Water Polo Australia has some stuff, and New South Wales has some stuff as well. Any questions? So tonight was pretty simple. Again, preparation is the key. You've got to know the rules. And I don't expect you to be able to quote a rule to me word for word. You shouldn't have to, but you've got to know them, and you've got to be able to recall them when you're refereeing and know what's happening. When you see that situation again, oh, that's an exclusion, and you can call it. You're not thinking about it, and you're just reacting. Okay. Hopefully we get some questions. Hello, Kirsten Binney. How are you?
Hi,
Jeff,
Andrew.
yeah, Jeffrey's got his hand up.
Yep.
Hey, Andrew. Yeah, thanks for making this available to everyone. I think it's great that this has been available to everyone, especially from regional towns. My question is I mean, I've come back from water polo after about 5-year hiatus, and last season I decided to go back to referee just to help out the club because the draw was splitting everyone up, and we needed the extra referee to kind of assist. Now, one thing I noticed that the standards and the people that I was seeing were, of course, youth. But is it best to what I'm finding with the league that I had was that I had a senior person that I could go to help, but some other clubs didn't have that ability. In that type of situation where you might have numerous clubs that don't have that resources, do you think the league, like especially in I think Narrabri, that's starting up, is it best to get the referees together for meetings once a month, similar to what the Sydney competition does?
Yeah, I would strongly recommend that you have a meeting before the competition starts and agree on how you're going to do things. So you're all consistent up front, whether that's dealing with coaches, applying whatever competition rules might have changed, so you're familiar with it, and you have a consistent way of applying those rules. Also, probably do one 3 or 4 weeks into the comp and see how you're going. And for example, I'll pick on you. Like, we agree that we're going to deal with the coaches with an instant red card, for example, if they say, hello, how are you going? Okay. And we can say after 4 weeks, Jeff, you're not following our discussion from 4 weeks ago. We need you to be consistent with the rest of us. Because what happens is that you have that chat, 9 referees are doing it, 1's not. It all comes back and says, well, he's not doing it. Why are you doing it? And so then it's on the rest of you to say, we're a group, we are seen as one. We need to be consistent. So at National League finals every year, when we have our chat, our goal is so that if I pull a hammy in the middle of the game and someone has to step up, no one knows that I've been replaced. And that's how we try and approach it. Sometimes we're successful and sometimes we're not. So you need that consistency. And you can do that. And if you find the season's going well, you can reduce the number of meetings you have. But even having a catch up like after Christmas and resuming, we did one in New South Wales this year in January, and just a refresher. This is what we did well before Christmas. This is where we've had feedback from coaches or clubs that we need to work on, and try and do that for the next ones.
Yeah, because I was noticing that there was a standard difference, and I understand. Like, I've seen people that just got their community at the same time as I did, but I was noticing a simple rule like the ball being underwater when they're picking up the ball, and the player's right there trying to go for the ball, and he's dragged the ball under, and the referee doesn't call it. And I'm like, that's got to be called. And then I've had a few that goes, well, no, that's not a foul. I'm like, well, no, it is. You're taking the ball underwater out of the exclusion. So it's like, it's trying to work out what solutions we could look at. I mean, I understand this is my second season back. I used to referee down in Sydney just to help out again. And I have to say thank you to every single person here who's willing to put their hand up and referee, or people who have refereed, because without the referees, you don't have a game. So it's just trying to work out ways that, I could recommend to make it a little bit more smoothly.
Yeah, and have that discussion. So the delegate we have in Australia, we have Don Cameron, who's on the World Aquatics Technical Water Polo Committee. He's currently in the World Champs in Fukuoka. His explanation for ball under is it's not, and this is going to sound stupid, but he drums it into us like crazy and did it National League. It's not ball under, it's ball under.
Yeah.
So if you get that consistent message through, and I found that when he was drumming it into me, and especially when he's a delegate on the game, I think of that nonstop. And it drives me crazy. And I had that in the back of my mind. What would Don think? Is that a ball under? And it drives me crazy, but most of the time he's happy. So little things like that. But again, if you need some help, or don't hesitate to reach out. One of the things I'd like to introduce this year is a mentoring program as well. We're probably going to try and roll it out in metropolitan Sydney to start with, to see if we can get it to work for the first 3 months, and then we'll try and roll it out further. And ideally with that, it's just giving all of you someone that you can contact for advice and questions, okay, and helping you out, and we're going to pick the senior referees in New South Wales to start with, to be the mentors to start with, to trial it, and then we're going to see how we go and try and tweak it before we offer it up to everybody in New South Wales as referee, because there's a lot of referees.
I think that's a great thing, because especially when I was down in Sydney, I mean, I was part of Macquarie Uni for about a season or two, and there was just no way that I could progress as a referee within
Yep.
a small club like that. But when I was at University of New South Wales, there was one or two there that was able to assist me at that time. And remember, this is talking about like 10 years ago. So,
Yep.
yeah, it's just trying to work out from the country area what we can do to try to make it a bit more smoothly. So someone, like I'm getting into my 40s now. I mean, by the time I'm in my 60s, the question is whether I'll be fit enough to even play. So the one thing I would love to do is still help out with refereeing. And I think if, if we're all got that desire and to help out the sport, we need to work out how we can become better referees in that way.
Yep. Fair enough.
Yeah. That's exactly, look, Jeffrey, you've hit the nail on the head. When Taylor and I were, throwing this idea around for these sessions, that was exactly that was the main point, providing an opportunity for referees to develop, because we do know that there has, we can pick any excuse under the sun that we want for why it hasn't happened, but at the end of the day, the past is the past, and all we can do is look forward. And looking forward is looking at the 41 of you that have logged on tonight on a Thursday night to restart and kickstart your referee development, which is exactly what we want to do. And from this, we want to continue it. One of the reasons for doing it in this part of the season as well is we know a lot of the regions in particular, because of circumstances, because of your pools close in winter, you go into hibernation. We want to keep people engaged. We want to keep people interested. This will finish at the end of end of August rather, and in 6 weeks you're starting your summer comp. So it's not going to be too much of an overlap and a lag between seasons and some refresh information. And then we get to, have the conversation of, okay, let's start coming out face to face and let's start doing some classroom sessions and more development and face to face development, which is what we're working towards as well.
Just a quick question also. Sorry to disturb everyone with this other question. Like the people that are based in like Central Coast, Newcastle, do we have the ability that if we wanted to come down to Sydney and referee a few games,
Yep.
To get the experience?
Absolutely.
So that the standard is at the same level?
Absolutely.
As a referee?
Absolutely. So we in winter in particular, we have a lot of obviously because there is no like Central Coast Newcastle competition in winter. We generally have a Central Coast or a Hunter junior teams enter the Sunday competition, which is great, and a few of those referees have added themselves to the referee roster to when they're available, and I try and put them on and around just before, just after their own games. But for anybody else that wants to come down, if they want to come down in winter or even in summer, we'll never say no. You can never have enough referees. And like you said, I think as well, there is that challenge. The competition in Sydney, there's many more teams and players. Like it's just so much more, it's so dense in terms of a competition compared to regionally. So you do get that much more varied competition of skill, and you get that extra opportunity to try your craft and see where you're at and go, okay, this is where I really need to improve. This is where I need to work. And when that happens, we will work with you to go, okay, we'll make sure we try and have an evaluator or a delegate on your game to give you that feedback. That's kind of what we're working towards. As we move on, not everything can happen overnight, but season by season, we will be starting to hit new KPIs every time of what we want to achieve, both in Sydney and regionally with referees.
Yeah. So when you're dealing with delegates, listen to them, nod and accept it. And if you have someone else the next time, listen to it. And I'm sure Libby and Steph found this with Nash League. And if you're getting a consistent message from all of them, then there's something needs to change. If you're getting different messages, or they're telling you something that you're doing, like your positioning on the side of the pool is different each time, and sometimes you just got to pick the one that suits you and what suits you with your positioning on the side of the pool. Okay, delegates are all going to say you need to stand where you this way or this way, and it does you no good to think about it and have different opinions each time. Okay, delegates or pool controllers, listen to them, respect them, but if you're getting a different message from each of them, you've got to sort of filter some of it out And I don't know if Libby has something to add with this, because I think you had a few different delegates in your games, Libby, in her first season as well, which makes it even harder for Libby and Steph in their first National League seasons to get differing opinions on the same thing, generally from people that have never refereed, which also makes it even harder.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think and that was evident at a couple of championships I went to, but you're right. I kind of, half the time you know that you've stuffed up. So you know you're going to hear that from the delegate's mouth as well, and you kind of know what to take and what not to take. Or I'd personally just take it all, but there's some that I take on board more than other advice, I suppose.
Yeah, agreed.
Now, if I'm your delegate, I'm always right. Okay, it's very simple.
Just nod.
Yeah, just not. But I mean, also for me, a lot of it is where the delegate sits. They don't always have the same view as a referee, and they need to ask the question, you know, from what did you see, and explain. And I want to know, why was that a penalty, or why was that not something? I want to know what you're looking at and getting your understanding, because it also tells me your understanding of the rule, because I might be sitting at halfway and you're at the 2 meter line or the 3 meter line. You've got a better view than I do. And what I see is different, but I want to try and understand what you're looking at to get that thing. And it's also something you can discuss with your colleague as well, because you might be on the other side of the pool at halfway thinking, how is that a penalty? You know, or that's a penalty from where I am. Why haven't they called it? And you can't be really overcalling from that area, you know, but you need to have that discussion as well. And I can't stress enough talking to your colleague before the game, especially if you've never ref before. So like Danny Flav and myself and Nick Hodges in Sydney, we barely talk before a game because we've probably done 200-300 games each. We know what we're doing. We know what they're looking at. We have a simple philosophy. But you need to understand and talk with your colleagues about what you're looking at and how you're going to do it. Okay. Discuss it again. And we cover that, I think, next week as well, and the importance of it. And I can't stress it enough. If you watch the World Champs and if they pan out long enough, you'll see the two referees actually chatting at quarter time. Now that they may not be chatting because they're using headsets during the game to help communicate during the game. So they may be talking about what they're going to have for dinner or whatever. No one knows, but it looks like they're talking about the game. And the coaches and managers are looking at it and the players going, oh, the referees are talking. They're trying to get on the same page. You could be talking about, you know, going to the pub that afternoon or whatever, but it looks like you're together and as a team. Okay, any other questions? No?
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, again, thank you everybody for, oh, sorry, Jeffrey, did you have another question?
Oh, I could ask one, but yeah, if
No, go
if
for
you're
it.
just trying to stretch it out, you know, I mean,
That's all right. If you got another one, that's fine. Not a problem.
because I've got about 2 or 3 I could ask, but I don't want everyone to be sitting there going, "Oh my God, Jeffrey's just so annoying." That's all. I assume there's 1 or 2 people from Narrabri. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we had 6 people register. So I'm not too sure though who from
I
Narrabri.
know of 2 of us. There's 2 people that I can see in the list. Myself and Carla Carruthers. Is there anyone else?
Put your hand, flick your little hand up if you're here from Narrabri.
Yeah, because my question was, how does, like, because being a small club or a club that's in a development mode, what recommendations could you give to them in order to help assist with their refereeing, with their referees, especially with either new people who've barely played the sport or is just getting into the sport, or a player that is now needing to become the referee in order to get into, and what could they do? Because they're going to be restricted with, you know, talent or profession, constant referees.
We're definitely in a unique situation and in a pickle because we don't even know how many people we're going to have as members, let alone referees.
Look,
there's only 4 or 5 of us with experience in playing. So yeah.
What I would say to that, and Andrew might have some extra information on that. Look, it's relative, right? So while you've got a group of you that, you know, a handful of you that have got a history and an experience within water polo, you will have the majority that don't, which means your officials will be in the same boat. Yeah. So my first point of call would be jump on to the Water Polo Australia training curriculum, and use that as your starting point, because at the end of the day, to referee and to be accredited, you need to do the online modules anyway. So you may as well start there. Read the rules is the biggest one. Use the resources available. And if you don't have access to the higher quality games, like I even say to my club here in Sydney, go and watch other games, go and watch Division 1 games, so that you can see what the pathway players essentially in Division 1 in Sydney, how stuff is done right, how a ball under is done correctly, and how exclusions are done, etc., etc. Watch that stuff online. There's like Water Aquatics have all their games on YouTube that you can watch. They've got the junior world champs as well, which is, it's a little bit of a slower pace because it's juniors, it's not seniors. They're kind of your starting points. And then as you progress and as you're ready, you reach out to us. I can also see that Gail Salter from Tamworth has said to reach out to help out with a visit. It's all about just putting your hand up. You've got Taylor. The beautiful thing about all of you here is you've got Taylor as in your back pocket. She's there to support you. She's got your back. So if you need anything, what do I need to do? She might not have the answer, but she'll be able to put you into the right answer, and put you in touch with people who are gonna help you in that instance. So that's probably going to be your first point of call. And then as you progress, and as your players progress, and as your referees progress, we've got the under 12 tournaments that we hold 4 or 5 a year. I know I saw Lucy on the call earlier. She might be able to step in and tell me, but we normally hold 4 or 5 of those across the year. Junior state championships, and we also do country championships, seniors and juniors as well. So as they start getting the confidence and to start the exposure, they're the avenues that are available. But my thing, turn them into tragics and get them onto YouTube and get them watching old game footage. That's how they're going to understand how the correct way for things to be called is. If players, coaches and referees can benefit from watching that stuff.
No, thanks for that. I thought I'd just ask that question because, especially if you're in a remote area where there's very limited. I know a few players from Lake Mac. We're keen on going up to Narrabri before the Newcastle season starts. So we're hoping that we can try to assist with any way we can there, because I know Dean's got a very good relationship with the guys at Lake Mac there. Just a question, Andrew, with Andrew and Steph. For someone that wants to do like the Sydney games on a regular basis, what is the recommendation? How much time would you recommend? Because there is a big standard, and I have to admit there is a big standard with the games and the expectations with referees between Newcastle and Sydney games. I mean, is there a time frame that you'd recommend for a referee that really wants to go down and really develop on how long they should spend in the country environment first?
How long's a piece of string?
Yeah, not really. I think it comes down to confidence of the referee. When they feel comfortable enough to try. And the other advantage is you're known in your local area. So you've probably played with or against most of the people you're refereeing, which can cause problems. And I still have that here in Canberra with guys that I used to play with 20 years ago who still think that I'm going to help them or screw them over. They're too silly to work out. I'm not going to do both. The advantage with going to Sydney or a different regional area is they won't know you as well. So the mistakes you probably get yelled at for in your local area, most of them will probably accept it in a different town. So it comes down to your confidence as a referee. And I say confidence, not arrogance, deliberately. So I hate arrogant referees. And if you watch the World Champs, most of them are, and it drives me nuts. Everyone seems to think European referees are better than here in Australia. And generally, that's not the case. Like if you watch the World Champs, there's some exceptionally good referees there, don't get me wrong. And I refereed with some of them last year in Budapest. But some of them are just no better than what we've got here doing second grade, to be honest. But there's no time frame. I just think it comes down to confidence. And if refereeing for you is something you want to look at as a pathway. So for me, it was a pathway when I stopped playing. I hate coaching. So for me to be involved, it was refereeing. I make the decision. I drive to Sydney. I basically spend every weekend from October to May in Sydney because that's the best first grade competition in the country before National League. So that was my choice. I don't expect everyone to do that. I don't expect everyone to be that silly. 3 hours up and back on the highway. And now as director of referees, I get the coaches ring me on my way home to complain about referees. So it's great fun. But I think it comes down to you as an individual. When are you comfortable to step out of your comfort zone to go to Sydney? Now, generally, Steph, if you make yourself available, depending on the day, Steph will put you on a game of whatever standard. We'll try and get people there to watch and see how you're going, give you some feedback. Probably the next time you come down, give you the same level games, see how you're going. But for me, it's if I look at someone and I think, you know, maybe they're doing 14s and I think they need to go at 16s, we'll give them a go at 16s.
Yeah. And it's
And
about,
progress them through.
consistency. So in general, when you're progressing through the pathway and progressing through the levels, it's not that you can do one A grade 16 A grade game good. It's that you can do multiple of them consistently good. And you're making the same mistakes or same lack of mistakes week in and week out. I know, you know, people think, oh, I've done Super League. I'm like, well, no, you did one. You did okay. You know, we'll warm you up. When I started doing Super League, it was exactly that. I did a few of the Friday night games, which involved the New South Wales under 22 or under 19s, I think it was, under 22s team. You know, that was I did them, I think, Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 Fridays in a row before I did 2 senior teams on a Saturday. So it's about doing stuff consistent and being consistent in your ability before you're progressing up and stuff like that. But they're the part of the conversations, and referees that genuinely want to work through the pathway and genuinely want to improve and are willing to listen and willing to learn and willing to take on feedback and be prepared to, you know, have constructive criticism. They're the ones that we happily invest our time in. It's the ones that, you know, like Andrew said, if they are a little bit arrogant or whatever, or they don't listen or they take nothing on board, they're the ones that, you know, we're not going to help them, but they might not be our first priority because they're not making their own effort to progress and to, you know, take on the feedback and guidance that, you know, people far more experienced than them are trying to give them. Yeah.
And I also don't tell people when I turn up to a pool all the time. I just turn up randomly just to watch them as well. Just
Libby, you have your hand up, Miss Libby.
I just wanted to, I was agreeing with what Andrew said about building confidence and knowing when you're ready to start refereeing, and particularly for the crew at Narrabri, I know that we're not far from each other, 2.5 hours away. What helped me was starting with the under 12s and getting some confidence with the under 12s and kind of volunteering to do some of those 12 tournaments like Orange and getting the basics right. And that really built up my confidence then to be able to referee higher grades at a local level. So we'd be happy to do some. We have 4 development refs in Tamworth, and we'd be more than happy to let you come along and referee some of our games. If we play, we have under 12s on Sunday mornings as well as adults games, and we've run workshops on those days, but you'd be welcome to come and watch or go and referee some of our games. That'd be really cool, actually.
I think Taylor, you're going to do a bit of an introduction with Tamworth and Narrabri, I think, so you guys can get some connections and start the ball rolling. That's really exciting. And this is what these sessions are about, right? Oh, you're from here. Let's connect and let's work together, because I think what I hope you all take from this is us doing this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, we as New South Wales have without a doubt the best competition in the country. We have the strongest competition. We've got the best players. You know, I might be my blood runs blue. I'm sorry, that's just how it is. You know, so our officials are then at the same standard, and we want to maintain that, and we want to set the standard. We want the standard here in New South Wales to be the standard across the country, which is why we're doing this, and why one of the things that we want to do is make sure that from the top up in Coffs and up in right at the top at Far North Coast at Ballina, right down to the bottom and out west, you know, to Dubbo and stuff, and everything in between. We want everyone to be consistent, and we want the same thing, and that's what we're working towards, and we're really excited. This is why we do these things. Yeah.
Sorry, I hate to be a pain. And I'm
Never.
sorry, everyone. I'll apologise right now, everyone. I apologise. Would there be? I mean, would there be the ability of some of our regional players be able, like, for those under 12s, to go on a list or something, and like at the start of the season, we can say, okay, these are the ones that we want to develop, and then so that those competitions have already got a certain amount of referees already on the go.
Yeah.
Would
That's
that
exactly. Yep, absolutely. So, once kind of as we kick back in the summer, and all that stuff, the stuff starts happening again, obviously with pools and everything regionally, particularly. That's exactly when you nominate your people. You know what I mean? Get them to do their online stuff, get them to do the modules, get them to do all the online curriculum stuff, and then you get to under 12s, and that's where you do your practical assessments. I always say, where you have got the ability, do some, you know, training games. You got an hour and a half training session, and you do training for, you know, an hour, and you play a game for half an hour at the end. Those that want to referee, get them to referee those training sessions, because that's how you're going to build your beginning of the confidence. And then you go to under 12s, which is where you then do your practical assessments and get accredited that way. Mark, you have your hand up.
Yeah, the training, the modules you just talked about. I assume there's some links there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm going to send them around. Before I do though, I will. First and foremost, all the links that were in the back of that the presentation, I'm going to send around to everybody as well, with a link to this presentation, so you can go back to it as well. So you'll have access links to that. Second of all, the online curriculum, Water Polo Australia at the moment is in the process of finalising an update on a new platform. So before I send out the old one, I'll have a look and see how far away they are from releasing the new stuff. If it's a little while away still, I'll send the old stuff. But if we're talking a week or two, or within the month, or if by the end of these 6 sessions it'll be released, I'll wait till that's done, so we can get that started. The online modules, you can do them in an afternoon generally, even on the old platform. So I'll reach out to Water Polo Australia and see where they're at with it before we start sending old when it's being redone.
Okay, thanks.
Pleasure. Okay, I think that's, unless anyone's got any other questions, we have gone a little bit over, but you know, it's first one, and you know, Jeffrey had some wonderful questions to invigorate some conversation, which was great, and start some connections. So I want to thank everybody again for taking time on their Thursday evening to join us online. We had 41 people log on tonight, which is just amazing. So thank you again. As soon as I can get this sent out, I'll probably send it out over the weekend, so that if you want to refer back to it, you can, along with all the links that were at the end of that spreadsheet, PowerPoint rather. And if I come across anything else, I'll send them across. You all obviously have the referee's email now, because you got this link, which is great. But if you want to send either myself or Taylor an email, if you've got any questions that I can help you with, feel free to, you know, send us an email. Happy to have a chat as well. And we go from there. I mean, for myself personally, I do have a full-time job, but I do this referee stuff generally outside of hours, but I'm happy to, you know, organise time to speak with anybody when the time comes, if you need it. So if everyone is willing, can everyone turn their cameras on, please? What I might do is I might stop recording and then I'll do it.